You know, guys, one of the best thing that I think has come out of this whole Gamergate 2.0 thing is that it has had to basically force the conversation to happen that nobody wanted to have happen in the industry, right? The gaming industry, especially the AAA gaming industry, has been perfectly fine with letting things burn around them as long as they all protect their echo chambers and pretend like everything is okay. The toxic positivity mindset is very debilitating in this industry, and by YouTubers and people like us going out there and making the conversation happen, it has now forced developers to get on the forefront and talk about it, whether they wanted to or not. Now, one of those developers has been talking about it for a while is Mr. Mahler. Mahler is an amazing developer. He's behind No Rest for the Wicked. And honestly, some of the takes that he has on Twitter is pretty damn good. But at the end of the day, he is continuing to talk the conversation, and you got to respect him for that.
Shut up and take my money.
Now, we have an article here from That Park Place with a headline that reads, "No Rest for the Wicked developer predicts AAA video game developers will continue to struggle and explains why." Now, again, guys, having someone like this openly speaking out about this, having Thomas Mahler speaking out about this is very, very, very important to the overall conversation that's taking place right now about the gaming industry and how people are trying every which way they can to hold on to that last little bit of toxic positivity. But at the end of the day, you're gonna have to come, face reality at some point, and if you don't, it's just gonna end up smacking you right in the face like they tend to do with a lot of these studios. So let's get into this article, guys, from That Park Place. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So it says, No Rest for the Wicked developer Thomas Mahler shared his prediction that AAA video game developers will continue to struggle, and he explained why he believes that. In a post to X, Mahler stated, "It is absolutely not a surprise to me that a lot of AAA studios have been struggling lately, and my prediction is that it won't really get better anytime soon." And I gotta imagine he's right. Everything that we have seen has indicated that things are not looking too good for the AAA industry. And sure, there is a banger every now and then. Of course there is, right? That's only normal. People are desperate for good games, and usually the good games are the ones that are the bangers, right? I'm looking at you, Black Myth Wukong. But still, at the end of the day, there is way more failures than there is bangers, and it is astronomically different now. Before, it would be a nice even split between banger and no banger. Now you got 85% no banger, and you got 15% bangers, and it's just not enough. It's not enough for the amount of money that they're spending on these video games and the budgets that are astronomical. They are ridiculous. We're talking Hollywood level and further budgets. It's insane what they are spending on these video games, and yet they try to convince themselves that they're going to get a return on that money while going for an audience that is less than 1% of the population. It makes absolutely no sense to me. But at the end of the day, that's just what they do. He then explains, "I know it sounds absurd, but most of the game studios out there that hit it big were at one point just a small group of passionate folks that wanted to make games together. In a lot of cases, they were just friends, and if they were lucky, they found out in the process that they can actually make a great team together." That is original Blizzard. That is original BioWare. Those kind of companies that were legendary for the games that they put out because the quality was insane what they were putting out. And modern day Larian Studios is probably going to be thrown in that mix of companies and studios that they just mesh well together, and they're passionate and they work well together, and they do what they got to do to bring a fantastic product. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was that Blizzard got hit by corporate greed, and BioWare got hit by corporate greed and retardation too. At the end of the day, this all affects the studios, and it trickled down, and now we see the effects of what happens after these studios have been afflicted by corporate greed. Then the games they created struck a chord, and now they scale up and become a massive studio. Mahler elaborated. And then a lot of other folks come in and demand this and that, and unknowingly change the culture and the approach. And then we suddenly wonder what happened to this or that great studio that always delivered in the past once they're not delivering the same quality products anymore, even though everything changed in their approach to making games. Well, again, not to bring it back up again, but Blizzard and BioWare are prime examples of that. Blizzard and BioWare were run by very passionate people that all they wanted to do was make amazing games that people were going to remember and enjoy for hours and hours and hours on end. That's what they wanted to do. Once they got corporatized, that went out the window. Then it became about the investors. Then it became about, hitting deadlines, all this other stuff. It became about everything other than the passion and trying to make a game for gamers. Next, he made an analogy to the Beatles. I've compared companies to bands in the past because I think that analogy helps a lot of people understand that we're really dealing with the same issues here. Take the Beatles. They become successful, but now their record company tells John, Paul, Ringo, and George how they should write their songs. And by the way, now they should also hire Lisa, Stewart, Shane, and Mary and have them be part of the songwriting team so they can produce more stuff. And of course, these new folks should have the same say because otherwise we might just face diversity issues. Does anybody really think we would have gotten the same output that they had by doing it this way? No, of course not. And it's no different from game studios or any other group of talented people that produce art together, he declared. Mahler concluded, you have to keep that magic alive that made all of it work in the first place. We're dealing with humans here, and all too often the industry seems to forget that. That's actually a really good analogy to compare it to bands. I never even thought about that, to be honest with you. Damn, especially when he says to hire Lisa, Stewart, Shane, and Mary and have them be part of the songwriting team with equal say, otherwise diversity issues. That's actually a really good way to put it. Thomas Mahler has some really good takes, and honestly, he's one of those developers. I don't want him to agree with everything I'm saying. I'm sure he doesn't. But what I do want is for him to be part of the conversation. I want other developers to be part of the conversation. I want people to openly speak about it and genuinely talk about the issues that are afflicting the industry right now. And it's not just DEI, ESG, all that stuff. There's a bunch of shit that's afflicting the industry right now. And the more developers we can have openly talk about it publicly and get involved in the conversation, the better. But unfortunately, a lot of these developers are just too busy attacking gamers. A lot of them are too busy having their heads in the sand and blaming gamers for everything that's going wrong in their lives. Meanwhile, gamers are the ones that gave them a job in the first place. Without gamers, you won't have a job doing what you're doing. So you're going to have to at least at some point come to the understanding that gamers are the ones who are buying your products, and you have to make games for gamers. If you're not going to make games for gamers, then you have to be okay with being jobless. That is just simply what it is. This prediction and his explanation comes in the wake of explaining why he agrees with Elon Musk that DEI kills art. Now, that whole tweet about DEI kills art, Elon Musk, I think, did it twice now. And every time he does it, it goes mega viral because people who want to shill for superficial diversity, they'll take their opportunity to quote tweet that and talk about how Elon Musk made Twitter terrible, blah, 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 destroy the platform, whatever. They'll do everything they can to try to bring that man down. But at the end of the day, what he did was allow the conversation to flow freely. That's what he did. And we wouldn't have people like Thomas Mahler. We wouldn't have people like myself. We wouldn't have anybody in this conversation being able to talk about these problems because old school Twitter would be banning us before we could even get the first letter out. So I'm glad that Elon Musk bought Twitter, and I know a lot of people are not, and that's okay, but I'm glad he did because then the conversation has now allowed to flow freely for everybody to see. Thomas Mahler speaks truth, though, in this regard with DEI kills art. And a lot of people knows that because in order to be creative, you cannot have limitations. If you have limitations on creativity, that usually stifles creativity. And sure, there are iterations and there are examples of when you have limited ability to do certain things that you have to be able to then force creativity in that aspect. But that's different, right? If you have lower budget, let's say, right? Let's say you're working with $100,000 versus $10 million in your budget. Sure, you're going to have to be a hell of a lot more creative in certain aspects in order to be able to introduce your game in a way that's going to be meaningful with that little bit of money. That's different. But when you have people saying, okay, well, I know you want to make this world and that's okay. You want to showcase it in that manner, but we need you to have a black guy, Asian guy, Indian guy, blah, 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 female, non-binary pronouns, all that. We need you to have all this stuff. And we need to make it, we need you to do it like now. That's not creativity, because then somebody has to nerf their creativity in order to fit these checkboxes that may or may not work in the actual world that they're building. So at the end of the day, man, hopefully, again, Thomas Mahler has some great takes. Hopefully he continues the conversation, and hopefully everybody else continues to get involved in what otherwise is an industry that we all love, but unfortunately is burning around us because people that don't love it are sitting there pretending that they do. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it if you get to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.